I know it sounds extremely redundant and possibly stupid to say this, but corners are really important to racing. Some corners define the entire identities of tracks and shape their legacy. From the most basic looking left-handers in the world to entire complexes that require the most picture-perfect execution to avoid hitting a wall at 130 miles an hour, we're going to be going over and eventually ranking the greatest corners in the world. Once again, the greatness formula is coming through here, though being pretty different to the original one I made for the tracks. Unlike the tracks, the amount of corners I personally consider truly legendary and being some of the greatest in the world is a lot narrower, even though there are a lot more corners than tracks. I think there are just very few turns in this world that should earn a distinction for being cool. A majority of them are just that, turns. Not particularly surprising or exciting in any way, even if they contribute to good racing. You might be asking yourself, well then, you stupid piece of shit, what does contribute to a corner being cool? And to that I say, this. And you didn't need to fucking say all that. What the fuck? Just like last time, we'll go through each part of the equation, explaining why it's important to the overall greatness of the corner, and at the end, give some honorable mentions and another top 12 list, which I know you're here for. It goes without saying, once again, that this list is subjective, as I am not a perfect adjudicator, but I'm damn close, so there will be as much objectivity as possible while my opinion still can be shown. There's two parameters for this before we get into it. One corner per track, and close chicanes and sequences count as one corner just to be convenient. I mean, I'm not here to be pedantic, even though this list is about ranking stuff. If you couldn't tell by now through watching my videos, I'm a guy who thoroughly enjoys aesthetics. I think most people do. I mean, the ones who don't either love the color gray or are possibly depressed, which might go hand in hand with one another. But the views and vibes are something that I heavily stress being important in my greatest tracks video, even though it seems trivial on a grander scale. Take, for example, a corner like the Fairmont hairpin at Monaco. I'm not here to talk about the duality of Monaco as a track, but just through the Fairmont hairpin alone, you can see how important aesthetics are to the greatness of a corner. I'd say that most people agree that it's the most aesthetic corner on the track, being overlooked by the ever-present glitzy hotels and always having hundreds, maybe thousands of spectators surrounding it, and having that old money feel to it. It's maybe only beaten by the tunnel and like Razcast in terms of the views. Maybe. But the corner itself, even in Formula E, whew, man, that's a rough watch. It's been a rough watch for like 20 years at this point. Yet still, every time it pops up on broadcast, that feeling, that like indescribable feeling of like awe, it still shows up in me whenever I see it. Not to be like dramatic or anything, but you get what I'm saying. It's not like that can save it for being absolutely horrendous to watch from a pure racing standpoint, but regardless, it is the absolute best example of how important aesthetics are to the prestige of a corner, because I highly doubt anyone would like Fairmont if it was the exact same gradient, elevation change, all of that, but on an airfield. Funnily enough, by the way, the score was actually good enough to place Fairmont into the top 12, but the difficulty / quality score is just so buns that I chose to not include it. It's still an all-time great, but compared to the rest, it's just too different and frankly too ass to be put on the list. With locations and aesthetics covered, the next category will draw back all the racing purists who got bored with me talking about vibes and all that bullshit. Just like with the tracks, the actual skill it takes to ace a turn is critical to gauging how legendary it is. Easy corners, if anything, are an impedance on good racing. An unnecessary slowdown that ends up being some hot dog shit. Now, is there such a thing as too hard a corner where it makes racing awful and it is even fun to drive in like qualifying? Yes, having that balance between a difficult corner that would be almost impossible for normal people like you and me to master, while also having it be a quality corner that further benefits racing and makes it more enjoyable, is a difficult task, especially for that to be universal across all types of race cars that race there. This is a good time to mention a corner that basically doesn't exist anymore, yet was a perfect example of trying way too damn hard to achieve that balance of difficulty and quality, and failing really, really bad. The Singapore Sling. For some reason, Still one of my favorite corners to ever exist, and one that lives on today looking like that. For those that don't know about the Singapore sling, it was a series of tiny turns that were really just one turn that had massive, and when I say massive, I mean massive curves that prevented any form of cutting or clipping. It was so incredibly tight, even for the smaller cars back in 2008 through to 2013, that it was basically impossible to take at race pace. It was such a poorly designed, executed, and driver perceived turn that it immediately became a legend. Once it was, in my opinion, wrongfully changed in 2013, the most iconic corner on an otherwise pretty boring track, although Singapore is a fucking vibe, was gone and replaced with a standard slow left-hander. The sling was one of those corners that had potential to be an all-time great had it not been constrained to being on a street circuit. The sheer lack of space available led to what should have been a good 3-corner complex to be a compressed piece of shit that acted like a bomb if you went a millisecond too long on the gas. This is why difficulty alone isn't enough to cover the bases of an actually good difficult corner. Without that quality, you get a Singapore sling, slowing down under race pace, stupid accidents that shouldn't have happened in the first place and costed teams millions, and an absolutely fucking hilarious watch when you ignore the fact that it's completely ruining the race. F1 execs, I know you watch me. Bring it back. Make it good, please. 2008, 2009 Singapore, like some of the earliest races I can remember. I don't even know why. I was like 1 year old. Just bring it back. And the sling was essential. The sling was essential to that. Please bring it back. Please. Please. What part of my morals do I need to give up for you to do that? Another example of a turn that was just wildly dangerous and difficult to take would be the old Daiichi curve of the original Fuji layout. That, like, yeah, okay, Singapore sling is scary. That's a scary turn. The old Daiichi curve, holy shit, that was a crazy deep dive down that motherfucker. I'll tell you what, that thing is terrifying. Now, to one of the most universal categories on the list, and probably the most important when it comes to fully defining greatness, the category that covers the memorability and staying power of a corner to a track's legacy. Trying to define how iconic a corner is seems difficult until you realize that the first corners that come to mind in your head are the most iconic ones. Defining what makes a corner iconic, however, is a little more difficult. To make a long story short, I spent a solid day and a half trying to quantify what made certain bends more iconic than others. While some turns in the world are just flat out perfect in terms of racing, they don't have that fanfare that leads to them becoming icons of the sport. But on the other hand, corners that don't seem that special, all things considered, are absolutely adored by fans and are seen as essential to the entire community. So, with these two conflicting views in mind, I came to the conclusion that what makes a corner iconic is seeing how universal the praise for it is. Regardless of what discipline you follow the most, you can see that turn and think, yeah, that's pretty sick. I know it seems a bit anticlimactic to say iconic means people like it, but hey, when you do research trying to be as objective as possible, you realize most things are pretty boring to try and understand, and you also realize that you wasted your time trying to do that. So yeah. Anyways, the example I wanted to talk about for this section also no longer exists, but was one of the most beloved and feared corners in the world. Mazda was a fucking monster. From Spa's inception in 1921 till they left the, frankly, insane original layout in 1979, the Mazda kink was more feared than any other corner, not only on the track, but possibly in the world. Blanchiment up to this point has killed 8 people. The original Malmedy killed 5. The Mazda kink killed 3, and yet still, it was more feared than the others. Why? Well, let me posture this to you, alright? It's 1965, you're driving a super flammable magnesium coffin with tires made of snotty tissues that can go a solid 160 miles an hour down this straight. And this bullshit is the next set of turns. After already going through Eau Rouge, Radion, Malmedy, and Les Cum, yeah. Anyways, I'm not here to talk about danger. I'm here to talk about Mazda itself. Why was it so iconic? Well, I mean, the danger.
Ain't you Nathaniel? Get off!
The precision needed to ace Mazda at full speed was practically unseen anywhere else in the world. It was a testament to the skill and bravery of drivers, and the risk factor that most fans love when it comes to racing. It was the original staple of Spa, even more than some corners I've already mentioned. All these years later, when the corner's been gone for nearly 5 decades at this point, it's still regularly brought up in discussion when discussing Spa. It is a shame that it's gone. I imagine modern cars would have a blast through there, but if Jackie Stewart is scared of it, I'm scared of it. The legend of the Mazda King shows how iconic it was and how a corner can build an iconic legacy. Another corner gone to time that shares a pretty similar story to Mazda actually, is the Oz curve at the old Hockenheim ring. With all the categories covered and explained, it's time to go to the rankings. Of course, there's more than just 12 great turns in the world, but the competition to get into that top 12 was so tight that the gap between the honorable mentions and it is practically non-existent. Some corners that didn't make it in include Aqua Minerale at Imola, Turn 9 at Tsukuba, the Senna Chicane at Adelaide, and Indianapolis at Le Mans. Now, as always, I want to hear what you guys think are the best turns in the world. So, I mean, if you want, drop your lists in the comments so I can read them while I'm at school and shit. I'm telling you, reading comments might be the most fun thing in the world. I love the duality between one comment saying, hey, good video, and another guy's like, are you fucking retarded? Huh? Spa at 6th, you stupid piece of shit. And with that, let's get into the list. What are the 12 greatest corners in the world? Starting us off in 12th place with a score of 19 out of 30, 130R barely makes the list. I know a lot of people might look at 130R and think that it's just a left-hand turn, and they'd be exactly right. 130R is a testament to how important being iconic is to a turn. While it definitely takes some heavy-ass balls to take 130R at full speed, in any car really, the sheer amount of love the corner gets for being the spot of one of the greatest overtakes ever, being practically the penultimate corner for one of the greatest tracks in the world, while being a consistently great spot for battles between drivers, is what drags it up all the way to its spot on the list. In 11th, with a score of 20 out of 30, Parabolica had to show up, man. I mean, being the most well-known corner at Monza and in the entirety of Italy is nothing to scoff at. On top of that, it's got a whole bunch of history behind it, existing one way or another since the 1920s. It's the final turn of one of the greatest tracks in the world, being the closer of the lap, and its atmosphere being surrounded by the Tifosi is just the cherry on top. Parabolica is an all-timer and takes the 11th spot on my list. To start the top 10 with a score of 21 out of 30, we're heading down to Brazil and the Senna S's at Interlagos. Off rip, one of the greatest overtaking spots in the world that's incredibly hard to actually master, while being right near the grandstands and being the highest point on the track where you see the best view of the surrounding neighborhood. There's not much to really say about them. They're one of the best corners for pure racing in the world, and they're only 10th. That's how tight the competition is here. And they are the original Senna S's, which, I mean, I think that should at least bump them up a couple points, but I don't got the space to do that on this list. In 9th, with a score of 22 out of 30, probably a bit of a controversially low pick, Maggots and Beckett's is what takes it. An extremely wide set of S's, also the most iconic corners in all of Britain on its most iconic track. I love watching the actual fastest cars in the world take Maggots and Beckett's, but it's only slightly let down by the fact that in slower cars, its difficulty and quality takes a bit of a hit. But regardless, it's still one of the fastest corners on this list, and it's the absolute highlight of the qualifying experience at Silverstone. I'll definitely say probably the crown jewel of all of Britain, even more than Paddock Hill Bend. I know some people might not like that. Coming in at 8th with a score of 23 out of 30, I've finally done my research on the bike focus tracks, so for all my MotoGP dudes, here you go, Phillip Island's Siberia. Probably one of the most gorgeous corners ever, and the speed you take it at and how it flows into the following two corners, it's like flow state personified, bro. And I know this doesn't count for much, but the name is so fucking hard. That's hard. Siberia, that's a hard ass name for a corner. Of course, being the most iconic corner on the second or third most beloved track in bike racing, if I was a big time bike racing guy, I have no doubt it would be in my top 3. Regardless, it's still in my top 10, even after doing just a little bit of research and watching a little bit of bike races there. Absolute peak. At 7th with a score of 24 out of 30, from one of the crown jewels of endurance racing, Sunset Curve at Sebring had to make an appearance. The name implies its beauty, especially at sunset, if you couldn't guess. And while it sort of just looks like a weird, wide hairpin, not only is it a triple apex, not only is it bumpy as shit, but when you're racing it at its intended time of sunset, the sun at minimum is impeding your vision enough to make it that much worse. It's a truly hard corner. and it just so happens to be the final corner of the third most important track in endurance racing history. If that doesn't garner at least a top 10 spot, I don't know what does. And starting the top half of the list, in 6th place with a score of 25 out of 30, we got the Wall of Champions chicane at Gilles Villeneuve. So, off rip, the hardest standard normal chicane in the world. There's so much time to be had if you can ace it, but if you don't, you're gonna have a sore ass neck for at least a week. The views aren't really there, but at least the biggest grandstand and it being the final corner adds to the vibes of the chicane. And, you know, there is a reason why it's called the Wall of Champions after all. The iconicness is there too, with it being the most iconic corner in the entire country. I also might be a little biased, not only because I'm Canadian, that's not the real reason, but I got to see how incredibly scary it is seeing F1 cars cruise through there at a solid 120 kilometers an hour, like in real life. Let me tell you, that shit is so much crazier in person than it is on TV. Continuing my apology to the bike racing fans, in 5th place with a score of 26 out of 30, we got Barrigaro. How do you say that? Is it Bargaro? Bagaro? Something like that. I'll say, trying to choose just one corner from Snaefell was like impossible, dude. I even put up a community post asking people to help me out, but the only answer I got was Bagaro or Bagaro. How the fuck is it? Regardless, I think it was the right choice anyways. The surrounding area, as with the entirety of the Isle of Man course, is beautiful, but that's not where this track gets the majority of its points. The amount of compression a rider has to take to go through there is like bananas. You're going through at least 220 kilometers an hour, and basically all you got is your arms, legs, and some tires to bear that load. Being arguably the most memorable corner on the track is just a bonus at that point. The difficulty alone probably could have brought it into at least 12th, but I'm not breaking my scale today. We're not doing that again. Now, usually I'd introduce the extra drama for the top 3, but I'm guessing a majority of you guys know at least 2 of the corners that are going to show up in this top 4. And this is one of the few times where I can confidently say that these next 4 corners are practically interchangeable in being the greatest turns in the world. So, in 4th place with a score of 27 out of 30, starting off the best of the best, the Nürburgring's Carousel. Probably the most unique corner in the world. It's literally spawned its own genre of corners, carousels. To be the most beloved corner on the world's most beloved track, while also being alright for racing and having the beautiful forest surrounding it, is crazy to add on top of that. It's also weirdly hard to take correctly, as if you fall out of the banking even by a bit, you're getting dragged off to hell by the bottoming out. Absolutely one of the world's best, even though the actual raceability of it isn't great. That's just not how it works. But honestly, it doesn't need that. It's an all-time great. Now, the podium, the literal cream of the crop. In 3rd place with a score of 28 out of 30, Laguna Seca's Corkscrew takes it. I know some people are going to be real mad that the Corkscrew isn't first, but please let me plead my case for the others later. The Corkscrew has been around as long as Laguna Seca has been around, even when it was just like a glorified oval back in the Can-Am days. It's a relic of the past, even today with the gradient being so steep that cars have to raise and specially tune their suspension just for it. Not even the rest of the lap, just for the Corkscrew. It's the most iconic corner in the entirety of the Americas. It's basically a blind turn, making it even more difficult to deal with the terrain. And the only thing letting down its score is the fact that Laguna Seca is literally in the middle of like a desert with nothing to see down by that part of the track. But the environment is still cool regardless. But if we're talking about pure skill required to take a corner, I don't doubt the Corkscrew would be second or even first on my list. It rightfully takes 3rd place. Please don't crucify me. And to the top 2. I'm guessing most of you can guess what they are, but just like last time, you might not know the order that they're in. So, in 2nd place, with a score of 29 out of 30, we got Eau Rouge and Radion. Spa's modern crown jewels and maybe even the world's crown jewels. Like, what can I even say to describe them that hasn't already been said a billion times before? It climbs 13 stories high, the suspension takes an insane amount of compression, the drivers go through G-force hell, especially the F1 guys, and the amount of fans surrounding it leading onto the Kemmel Straight right after is crazy. Eau Rouge and Radiant are a relic of the past when it comes to modern racing. With new tracks being built not really utilizing elevation all too much anymore, whether for safety reasons or laziness, depends on who's designing it, and the fact that it's been basically unchanged barring moving the barriers back a solid 150 feet or something since 1939 when they stopped using the Ancien Douane chicane. Like, what else can I really say? The only reason why it's not a perfect 30 out of 30 is because I had to choose between it and first place. And comparatively, the view from first place clears the vibes and views of Eau Rouge and Radiant. At least to me. Don't get it twisted though. Just because it isn't in first doesn't mean it isn't worthy of it. There's no real equivalent to these two corners left in the world. And that's why they've been so special for so long. A very well earned second place for Eau Rouge and Radiant. And with that, we move to the final corner. In first place, with a perfect 30 out of 30 score, the absolute best corner in the world, just one part of the greatest complex of corners in the world, Mount Panorama's S's Take It. If I could have, I'd have put the entire set from Skyline to Forest Elbow in first, but that would have been unfair to the rest of the list. As I said in the Greatest Tracks video, there's no other track on Earth that has a better set of corners than Mount Panorama. Nürburgring might have more interesting corners, Spa might have more iconic corners, but no track in this world has a continuous set of corners quite like Mount Panorama. The S's are the greatest corners in that set. Even though they aren't as steep as the Dipper or as pretty as Skyline, the mix of being almost as good as both of them while throwing in that extra right at the end into the Dipper, my God, bro. There's no corner or set of corners in the world that feel as scary, as rewarding, and as frustrating as Bathurst's S's, man. It's almost incomparable. The only thing coming close probably being the corkscrew. Mix that with the fact that it's possibly the most iconic set of turns on the track, maybe only being beaten by Skyline and the Dipper anyways, which are right there. There was literally nowhere else I could justify putting the S's. It's the most peak corner in the world. And that's why, above all the greats that the rest of the world has to offer, the S's of the Southern Hemisphere take my first place as being the greatest corners in the world. Thanks for watching, man. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what kind of topics y'all want next, because I only got a couple in mind that I feel I can really take in and make good content out of. If all goes well with this YouTube shit over the next couple months, you know, the money starts coming in, some good sponsorships. Trust me, I'm not taking mobile game sponsorships. I also probably won't take sponsorships related to personal safety. I just want a cool ass sponsorship, bro. That's it. Who knows? I might make a Project Car series if the money starts flowing in right. Stuff like that, you know. All these months later, and the fact that I'm in the position where I'm talking about getting sponsorships, like that shit does not feel real. It doesn't feel real to me, man. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all of y'all who made it this far in the video, or I mean anyone who just watched the video at all, even if you're not hearing this. Like, thank you, man. Thank you. That's all I can say. Just thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a good day, night, morning, afternoon, whatever. Just have a good one, dude. Have a good one.